I'm a Western rider, and I'm relatively new to dressage, like in the last few years. I got into it with work and equitation. I've been riding for, I don't know, close to 20 years. And I'm gonna try to ask this question as diplomatically as possible.
Okay,
So,
I like that.
so I just in the last, I don't know, 6 to 9 months got introduced to the concept of, help me out here,
Leisure-ate.
Yes.
Leisure-ate.
Yes.
Oh, good, I didn't know how to pronounce that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I'm learning that concept, and it seems like it's working really well for my mare that struggles, that I'm trying to bring along.
Right.
It's a very different way of riding for me, because the way I've always been taught to ride is on the bridle.
Right.
And so in your last session, when you were kind of talking, it kind of just got my head thinking about what you were saying. I can't remember exactly what you were saying, but it just kind of got me thinking about correctness and, what we were really trying to go for with collection and the horse moving properly. And I really enjoy working with Sarah, but I work with a few different people. And I'm starting to feel like I'm getting conflicting messages.
Gotcha.
And I just want to be able to articulate what I'm doing with different people and what's working for my horse. And so my question is, how can I talk about that style of riding and not to make it really basic, but this is what I'm doing and this is what's working for my horse.
Right.
When they say, oh, you need to get your horse on the bridle, what would be a good response for that?
It's not ready. You could say she's not ready. What people talk about, or what people have the image in their mind, too many people, when they say you've got to get her in the bridle or on the bit, these are all cliches, jargon that we hear in Western and dressage circles and jumpers and everything else. Okay, what do people mean by that? So that might be actually the best thing you can say when someone says you've got to get her in the bridle. What do you mean by that? What really do you mean by that? Because so many people, when you actually ask them the question, well, she's got to be round. Well, where? What part of her has to be round? Does she have to sit and flex the upper joints of her hind legs? And then, or do I have to round her neck? Which end am I going for here, And what happens if I round the neck before I flex the haunches? Well, I put her on her forehand, which makes her slow down, use her front legs to slow down her momentum, because what if she had all this weight over the forehand, even with her neck round, and she were to stub her toe? She would be afraid that she wouldn't be able to rescue herself. So she's trying to slow herself down all the time. That's why we see all these dressage horses behind the leg, or what people say, it's jargon. They're not going forward with free forward movement, right? So I think the best answer you could give is the question. What does that mean to you? Because to one person it might mean round their neck and lower their head. To another person it means collect at the walk, or in a degree that she can handle, to help her sit, and as she learns to carry more weight on the haunches and lighten the front end, she'll suddenly go, oh, look at this. I don't need my head to lift my front legs off the ground anymore. And her head sort of falls off the end of her neck, and you feel this lightness. So roundness in the neck in that case came at the end, not at the beginning. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool.
So when you talk about légèreté is a word in the French dictionary that means lightness.
Yes.
Anybody can use it. It's in the French dictionary. What is légèreté. It's Philippe Carl's interpretation of a lot of different great masters of what we refer to in a kind of more umbrella term as classical dressage. These were guys hundreds of years ago who came up with the ideas of doing different things, and the purpose was really noble. It was to prolong the working life of a horse, not just to make him obedient. So this is an important thing, because when we're doing dressage, whether it's in working equitation or it's in USDF, is that at the end of your test, there are the collective marks, mark for submission, a mark for obedience, a mark for impulsion, a mark for rider's effectiveness of the aids, these, movement. Okay. Well, in the English language, the word obedience and the word submission are often mistakenly interchanged. So in the world of a classical approach to dressage training, they were not. They were very different. And the word that has been made into what the English language uses, the word submission, used to be a phrase. The permeability of the aids. Permeable. Permeable means they move through, right? If you have a permeable membrane and you pour water, water goes through that membrane. Okay, so then it got shortened to submission, it got shortened again, and is interchangeable with the idea of throughness. That's the stupidest word I ever heard in my life.
Thank you.
Throughness, it's like, what is that? Well, the Germans are much better at this than we are. They tack 20 words together, or at least 3, and make a new word.
Like schwung.
Well, that
Was
was
in
a
Glassite.
But what we refer to as submission, the Germans call Durchlässigkeit. Durchlässigkeit. That's not an easy word to say unless you grow up speaking in the back of your throat. Durch means through. So this is a throughway. It's a durch. Yeah, okay? Lässigkeit means allowing. It may actually, technically, means lettingness. Through lettingness. It allows whatever you do to go through. Same as permeability, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in English, we think of it as psychological submission. Here's my tender underbelly parts. I'll do whatever you tell me to do.
Yeah.
We've got to get a new word for that. It's the most awful
It
word.
is a horrible
I
word.
don't
You're
like
right.
that word.
Awful.
either.
I mean, we kind of know that. I think most people agree it's a bad word, but nobody's come up with something else.
Well, why did we lose permeability of the aids? Why is it that people need to shorten words to one word instead of a phrase or an expression?
Yeah, we don't have the German way of doing it.
But so now that we think of it that way, we realize obedience and submission, the permeability, are two very, very different concepts. So you can have a very obedient horse who is in no way submissive. He's not soft, he's not relaxed, the aids aren't coming through his body. There's blockages everywhere. You know this from the Western world. People talk about, they use different words, but bracing, blocking, all these things. That's not submissive, okay? But if you have a submissive horse, he is always obedient. So what's our higher priority, obedience or submission? Submission, obviously, is the permeability of the aids, the through-lettingness of the aids, the softness in his body, the response to the aids. If I put my leg on, I want my horse to give to that leg. I don't want him to go, brace back against, no, I don't trust you, So this is important, and when I hear a lot of Western trainers talk about obedience and submission as if they're the same. We need to stop them in their tracks and say, no, that's a terrible word, submission. It's not psychological, this is physical. When you're dancing with somebody, you don't want them to and hold themselves against you, right? You want them to move,
To
right?
flow.
Yeah, flow. There we go. So these are little things that come up in the culture of the different disciplines that are different, and we have to try to find a common language that describes what we're looking for.
So my horse doesn't just come out and generally sometimes, but just doesn't come out and just march on out and have this free flowing,
Yeah.
moving in the right rhythm, relaxed, free forward movement, as you said earlier. But what I really appreciated about you, and it's very rare, is that you allowed and actually encouraged not to push to get that because she was sorting it out. And then she had more of that. And that's, I've had that approach in the past. And then, you know, I would say you're probably the first one that right from the beginning, well, maybe one other, that didn't focus on, they got to go, they got to go, they got to go. It was
Yes.
like, allow the horse
Yes.
to do it. And I've said to people, like you're saying, you come across people that, you know, they're different than what you've learned. I've actually told people, my mentors and people I respect, you know, when I've come out and given the horse, I mean, you know, I'm on the horse for 20 seconds, like, come on, get the hind legs, get the hind legs. And I go, hold on, we have a process. Just watch us for a minute.
Yeah. Trust me on this.
Right.
Yeah.
And they usually agree. And then we get to that point. But I think how you did it today, and I'm not sure I can describe it at this point, but it was just really nice because anytime that it wasn't going how I expected it to, particularly when I changed direction to the more difficult way, then I was immediately, come on, go. And the horse was like, oh, because, you know, I was tight. And so she met that with the same thing. And when I did less of that, I still kept doing it, but when I did less of it, it was amazing.
Good.
It was really amazing. And so, that's refreshing. But then, yeah, I guess we just have to keep hearing that over. And I did have someone compare, well, you can really get a little bit more oomph and forward and train from that, or you can, I think they referred to Nuno Oliveira as having more this type of approach. They called it crawling.
Yeah.
You can have that crawling Nuno approach, or you can do it this way.
What's that? What is that?
So-
And I don't think either is right or
What is
wrong.
it?
I'm just saying for certain horses that have that, you know, they're going to go, you meet that and you go with that. And then when you have the ones that are like, I don't think I can do this, then you say, okay, let's try this. Would you?
Absolutely.
Is that
Absolutely. And that is one of the foundation stones of being a good dressage trainer. And I'm not talking about dressage as a discipline that you go and compete in, but dressage as a philosophy
right?
for educating the progressive step-by-step development of a horse's understanding, his brain, and his emotions, and his physical development, both in his balance and his strength. So when we look at, say, modern competitive dressage, the common thing that we see, versus a classical approach. And this is, you brought up légèreté, and this is what I want to say. Légèreté is classical. It's a little bit though, because it belongs to Fleet Carl. He took the things out of the big pool of classical technique and philosophy and guidance, and he took, I like that, I don't like that. I like this, I don't want that one. And he made légèreté. Everything in légèreté is very classical. And it's a very, very good approach to training. But there's more classical stuff out there that is very compatible with légèreté, that is not légèreté. And it's important for those of us riding, and especially people who are exposed to légèreté, that you don't allow anyone to tell you, well, that's not légèreté, don't do it. If it follows the same philosophy, it's very compatible with, and I studied with him for 4 years, so I know this, you know. So I needed to say that because I suddenly remembered you brought up légèreté. So what I started to say with you was that the modern competitive way that is most common, and we hear it over and over and over and over, is forward before balance.
Yes.
And in that driving them forward, they will at some point discover their balance. And I say they might, if they're lucky, stumble on it.
Yeah, no, I don't like it.
And a classical approach is always balance before forward. Okay,
I like
so
it.
a horse like yours, a horse like yours, a horse like yours, okay? Your lip is on. Balance before forward. They feel confident going forward if they feel they can maintain their balance as they do so. But if we say, you know, forget your balance, go, 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 and they're like, what if I stub my toe? What if I can't rescue myself? And so now we have a horse who's behind the leg. The more he's behind your leg, the more they tell us to go forward.
Yeah.
If we just stopped and said, whoa, 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 come back, slow down. Please, whatever you do, don't run away with me. You know, I mean, go to the, whatever you do, don't run away. Wait, 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 wait. And all of a sudden, as with your mare, ooh, she turned into a gummy bear. She was a little holding, she was kind of like this to me, you know. Yeah. I don't trust you, I don't know you, I'm suspicious of you. That's okay, whatever, you know. Asked her to be supple, asked her to stretch both directions, everything in the walk. In the walk. Why the walk? You know, the walk is one of those funny gaits that dressage people are scared to death of. Absolutely scared to death. Because they ride it so poorly that they ruin it. They ruin it. A number of years ago, some people who owned a stallion, an Andalusian stallion, called me and said, could we talk to you about our horse? And I said, sure. I knew nothing. I never met them. I didn't know anything. And they came up to the island and they started telling me about this horse. He does everything so wonderfully, but now they're trying to do flying changes, and he's bolting and he's rooting and he's running away. And so the coach of the trainer is a very important silver medalist, you know, and her coach is, even more important than that. And he's saying, put the horse in a double bridle. He has to learn he can't get away with that. That sounds like disobedience. He's being naughty. Tell him he can't do that. And I look at the videotape and I say, oh, well, there's only one solution to this, and that is they have to stop driving him forward with his head between his knees. He can't handle that balance on the forehand, you know. Well, would you come down and teach our trainer? I'm like, no way. No way. She has to ask me. I won't go down there. So it was a few weeks, and I got a phone call, and she said, well, you know Spanish horses, and I know dressage. And I said, okay. So I tiptoe on down there, and I watch her ride, and this is seriously, I have a lot of respect for this woman, and I like her. She's a good human being. The horse was in a stall with electric wire around his door.
Oh, man.
Because he would lunge out. He was a stallion, he did this stuff. So when the grooms went to get him, they opened one went in, put the halter on, he stood quietly. Then the other one opened the door, and he piaffed in front of the door and closed his eyes, and they scooted out the door. And they got mad at him because he bolted out of the door. And I'm like, well, what do you expect, you know? And I watched him groom him, and he was a nice guy. And then they led him up to the mounting block, one groom on each side. And the rider, putting on her gloves, gets up on the mounting block, takes her whip, and she gets on. And then she says, okay. And they let go. And
It's like a
he
rodeo.
just bolts into the arena.
Oh my God.
I mean, and trot, literally behind the vertical, in what is today referred to as roll curve. And it wasn't that she was pulling him and being one of those horrible Danish riders that we see, you know. Excuse me. But she was going forward, my golly, you know, fast. And then she picked up the canter and galloping around, you know, and his head is down here, and then she goes the other way and does the same thing. And then she says, okay, now tell me what to do.
Get off.
Where do I start?
I said, well, do you ever walk? And she said, oh heavens, no, he has a terrible walk. I never would walk. And I said, sounds to me like he needs to practice. He needs to practice walking. And so she said, well, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. Tell me to do something. So I said, okay, walk slowly. Nuno crawl. The Nuno crawl.
The Nuno crawl.
You know, slower. I mean, it was just this constant slow down. But keep his neck moving. Now don't pull his head down, lift it up. Just, you know, don't hold it up, but lift it up. And then let go and lift it up again when he dives down. And do a walk pirouette like you were doing. Who was doing it? I was doing it.
You were doing it.
And you were doing it.
Oh yeah, we did it. Yeah, that was brilliant. Brilliant.
So she kept making him go faster, and I said, no, this is not a competition. Walk pirouette. Nobody's judging you. I want you to slow it down and shorten the steps. So she brought it to the Nuno crawl, and he's doing walk pirouette in counted walk. She'd never heard the word, which is fine. Most people haven't. And then I said, okay, now just whisper the canter and canter straight out. Don't ask him to do a pirouette. Just use the pirouette to prepare him for the canter. Canter a few strides, no more than 5 strides, and ask for flying change. She picked up the canter, 1, 2, 3, flying change, 1, 2, 3, flying change, 1, 2, 3. She did 4 of them. And she started screaming, oh my gosh, this is like amazing. She was just so happy. And she said, why did this work? And I said, because you helped him find his balance. You didn't restrict him. He didn't pull the reins out of your hand. He was clean behind. He didn't bolt. He didn't root. He just jumped into the canter. I said, this, you know, the problem is that you and I both learned this when we were 13. But you've been more successful in the competition. You've followed the competition world more in that direction. Whereas I've said, I don't know enough. I need to go learn more. I need to take more lessons. I need to, you know, find the people that can teach me something more than I'm doing. But we both learned this. This is a classical approach. Helping him come up and not pulling him down. And 2 days later, I got a call from her, and she said, guess what? I'm riding all my warm bloods that way, and it's working. She was so excited. And I thought, wow, nothing made me feel better than that little thing, you know? And it was a simple little change in the point of view. This was not a horse who was misbehaving, who was disobedient, and who needed to be told, you can't get away with that. With what? Trying to protect myself? Trying to keep myself from falling down. That's all he was doing. When a horse roots, that's not a disobedience. That is a fear-based response to being afraid of losing their head and neck for balance. So if a horse roots, let go of the reins. And then gather them back up. If he roots again, let go. And again, let go. Pretty soon, they will stop.
Ripping the reins out of your hand.
Because they trust you.
I had somebody tell me one time it takes
two to have a tug of war.
Yeah, oh, I
Exactly.
like that, yeah, don't be a hook for him to hang on, yeah,
And sometimes they just need to reach down and scratch.
yeah.
Or they just want a loose rein.
Or, yeah, maybe they need to say, hey, I need a break. Can I just have a break for
Yes.
2 minutes? You know, when I'm this is me, learning a new computer program. I'm like, don't tell me to click, click, click. I'm like, slow down, slow down, slow down. Now, one click at a time. No, wait, I have to write it down. Now, wait, one click, two clicks.
Control P.
Yeah.